All right, look, folks, Fox News' lurch to the left is maddening for nearly every conservative, including myself. And I wonder now if the leftist leaders of this Trojan horse of a so-called conservative network has compromised Tucker Carlson. Now, Tucker is a man that I have absolute great respect for. The fact is, Tucker and I agree on most issues, which is why I'm baffled by his defense of Russia's Vladimir Putin. Unless, of course, is Tucker operating under duress? Why else would he proclaim something like this about NATO and Vladimir Putin?
So at this point, NATO exists primarily to torment Vladimir Putin, who, whatever his many faults, has no intention of invading Western Europe. Vladimir Putin does not want Belgium. He just wants to keep his western borders secure. That's why he doesn't want Ukraine to join NATO. And that makes sense.
Right, that makes sense. Well, Tucker's right that for Vladimir Putin's perspective, it does make sense. But who cares what Vladimir Putin thinks? This is a rogue dictator that hates America. He is dangerous, and he wants nothing more than to expand his global reach. And the Ukraine is next. Our NATO allies want to stop that, but Joe Biden's weak. Putin knows Biden is weak. It's why he's ready to pounce. Tucker actually spells out why we need to protect Ukraine, but in a bizarre and confusing fashion, he actually defends and even lobbies for leaving Putin's military prowess intact. Listen to this.
A NATO takeover of Ukraine would compromise Russia's access to its Sebastopol naval base. That's the site of the Russian Black Sea Fleet and one of the country's only connections to international waters.
Well, Tucker acknowledges that would be disastrous for Russia. But he goes on to falsely claim that America gets, quote, no benefit from this. That's not true. A weakened Russia, think about this, with no bloodshed, no missiles launched, resulting in its navy being cut off from international waters. To me, that makes for a safer world, which then means a safer America. I know Tucker knows this, at least I would hope so, which is why I think maybe his liberal bosses may have gotten to him. Well, joining me now is host of Dick Morris Democracy here on Newsmax, former advisor to Presidents Clinton and Trump, and he just wrote a piece for Newsmax with the headline, Tucker's Putin play mirrors Hitler appeasement. Dick Morris is here. Dick, those are some strong words.
Well,
welcome, my friend.
What else do you call it? When Hitler invaded Austria, Sudetenland, Czechoslovakia, and Poland, he said, I have no ambitions in Western Europe. And that's just what Putin says when he invades Georgia, Moldova, Crimea, eastern Ukraine, and now Ukraine. We have no ambition in Western Europe. Look, he says NATO is an encircling aggressive alliance. The fact is that NATO has only one mission, which is if it gets attacked, all of the other members rally to the defense of the nation that was attacked, just like they rallied to us after 9/11 when we were hit. And if Putin attacks Ukraine, yeah, he's got a problem. But if he doesn't, he could coexist with Ukraine being in NATO. It's only his aggression that makes that dangerous for him.
Look, I side with President Trump that the members of NATO needed to pay their fair share, absolutely, but there's a use for NATO. I'd rather have all these countries together than America fighting this alone. Let me play this next clip for you from Tucker Carlson talking about exactly what you mentioned, talking about NATO here. Listen.
NATO is the post-war military alliance created in 1949 to keep the Soviets from invading Western Europe, and it worked pretty well for about 40 years. But the Soviet Union has not existed in more than 3 decades. It's part of history now.
Now, Dick Morris, it's not part of history. It may not be called the Soviet Union, it's Russia. Yeah. Vladimir Putin was a KGB agent who would probably kill dissidents in the Soviet Union, and he's running Russia now. This is the same thing.
Well, in fact, the KGB poisoned Yushchenko, who is the pro-freedom candidate in the Ukraine, my client, and he almost died of dioxin poisoning to try to knock him out of the presidential race. Look, when Putin talks about being encircled by NATO, it's the same garbage Hitler used to say. He's being encircled by Western Europe and by Russia, and he's just trying to secure his borders. And we fell for it in the 30s. We appeased him. He marched into country after country, and we found ourselves in World War II. Now, this bit about the Black Sea port, Sevastopol, Carlson either omits or doesn't know one fundamental fact. Ukraine controlled Sevastopol until 2015, and there was no borrowing of Russian military. The military is all over the place. They had to pay a fee, but that's it. So in 2015, Putin marches into Sevastopol, takes it over, and now he's being endangered by Ukraine returning it to its sovereignty?
So in 30 seconds, if you can, last question for you. What's going on with Tucker Carlson? I would think he'd agree with us on this. Clearly, he doesn't in his monologue. What's happening here?
I don't know. And he's trying to make the point that we need to endanger American lives to protect Ukraine. And that is totally untrue. We don't need to send a soldier anywhere near Ukraine. By cutting off Russian access to the SWIFT international banking system, and by going after money laundering by oligarchs sheltering Putin's money in London, we can discipline Putin and completely cut off his capacity to live. Why Tucker Carlson is doing this, I have no idea. I didn't know why Neville Chamberlain was appeasing Adolf Hitler either.
Well, look, Dick Morris, this is why President Trump hires you to advise him. It's good stuff. I wish Biden would listen to you, but there's no chance of that happening. Dick Morris, as always, thank you, my friend. We'll see you again real soon. You got it.